Hi, I'm Chef Christopher Koetke. U.S. soybean oil is a high-quality and versatile oil produced from soybeans sustainably grown in the United States. This oil has wide application throughout the kitchen. In this video, we're going to saute wonderfully browned, juicy strip steak and some rich, flavorful mushrooms. Every day around the world, restaurants saute lots of different items on high heat. U.S. soybean oil is the perfect oil for high heat sautéing, as it has great high heat functionality with a high smoke point. That means it's an ideal medium to conduct heat and produce delicious browned food. At the same time, it's a neutral oil which allows the flavors of your food to shine. The first step in sautéing over high heat is to start with a very hot pan, and this has been heating up now for a couple of minutes. Then what I'm going to do is season my steak, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper on both sides. Be sure to put plenty of seasoning on the outside of the steak. And then in goes the soybean oil. Now notice I heated up the pan first, and when it's good and hot, in goes the oil. And that oil is going to heat up almost instantly. You can see it start to move around the pan. And it's so critical that that pan is hot, because once I take the steak and put it in the pan, the temperature of the pan wants to drop. So I want to be sure it's good and hot. When you saute, I said earlier, you start with a very hot pan, but during the cooking process, you can turn down the heat a little bit so it cooks through properly. Now that is a beautiful steak. And one of the things that you can see on the outside of that steak, that beautiful browning, that's actually called the Maillard reaction. It's a reaction with carbohydrates and with protein at high heat. And that's the thing that gives you all that wonderful flavor. And what you're not going to get when you're using soybean oil is any kind of off flavor. Instead, it's all about that deliciously browned steak. Meat isn't the only thing that requires high heat sautéing. For instance, mushrooms also require high heat sautéing to get them really browned and delicious. The reason for this is that mushrooms contain so much water. And if the heat isn't really hot, they tend to boil instead of sauté, which gives you pretty poor flavor and not such a great color. U.S. soybean oil's high smoke point is the perfect oil for the job. So while that's finishing heating up, I'm going to just cut up my last couple mushrooms in here, and I'm basically taking the mushrooms and cutting them into kind of quarters or into sixths to give you some larger pieces. You could also slice them if you wanted to, or dice them. Now, pan, good and hot, and into that goes, of course, our U.S. soybean oil. You can see instantly how hot that oil gets. You can see it starting to smoke a little bit. That is perfect. In goes the mushrooms. And I'm going to saute these over high heat the whole time so that they become really beautifully delicious. Once the mushrooms have browned and they're cooked all the way through, I'm going to season them at the end of the cooking process. So put in a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And putting in the salt at the end actually helps them not weep their water earlier in the process, makes for better browning. And I love to put in some freshly chopped parsley. It just goes so perfectly with those mushrooms. Then I'm going to take the mushrooms and slide it into a little serving dish. You could also put this on a plate, maybe serve it alongside a piece of chicken or fish or meat, or even something delicious like tofu. Why not? Soybean oil works great for these mushrooms. High heat functionality, neutral flavor, and what do I get? A beautiful, earthy, delicious mushroom.